Greetings and welcome to In Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. Sheldon Blackman sings, "Blessed are the elders, and rightfully so." The question is though, how do we treat with our loved ones when they begin a journey through dementia? Arlene Correia, she joins us to discuss this and how she can empower you on your personal journey through this troubling time. Thank you for making the time, Ms. Correia. Just came in, but I want to ask you though, let's build it from the ground up in terms of give us a definition of dementia and some of the individual effects that may be articulated.
Yes. I would say a definition, is that what you asked me for? A definition of dementia. It's really brain changes, and it is a disease of the brain. It's like a heart disease or kidney disease, except it's diseases of the brain. That term dementia covers that. Yes.
And I think sometimes the way that we can say, okay, well, we're going to check off this box, this box, this box, and then this is happening. Okay, well, we can call it this. I think sometimes we don't necessarily realize the onset or the process, or we kind of get into the process of diagnosis after progression has already taken place. But
yes.
What does progression of the disease look like?
Yes. So I just want to say firstly that when we're looking at normal, the reason it's difficult to tell the onset is because as we age, we have normal changes that go on that, you know, I'm 65. There are lots of times I'm looking for words and I can't find the word, and all the older people in the group understand that we're looking for that word. And so that is like a memory problem, and that is just a symptom sometimes of just normal aging. We forget things, we're slower to respond. So I think that's often why it's hard to tell when the beginning of the disease is happening. And then the progression, unfortunately for us, I'll just go to like what middle of the disease looks like. And by that time, there's major vision changes. That's one thing that we hardly think about when we're thinking about dementia and progression of dementia. Even by middle disease, I'm going to put my hands to my eyes, we're at binocular vision. And in late stages of the diseases, our brain can only let us focus on what we see with a monocular vision. For example, language begins to be very difficult. Our language processing not only slows down, but we have just failure in language. We start hearing or understanding we skip every fourth word, for example. Our nouns start to be skipped more often. We're not understanding what the language that's coming at us really means anymore. And then it's a very unfortunate thing to say, but until we find a cure, it is a terminal illness. And that's a very hard thing to say to family members, but it is the truth. By the end of the disease, we will have about a third of our brain left, literally. And it's just not enough to keep our body going.
And you're saying this, and my pause a reason because it reminds me of when a loved one of mine, not dementia, but they had a stroke and they were struggling because there's a word that they want and they want to use that specific word. And they're pushing and pushing, and you know, sometimes the more you push, the harder it is to get what it is you're looking for. And they were getting angry and this sort of thing. And I also had recently had a funeral where I have 4 grannies. So the 4th one, she recently transitioned. And there was this thing where she was realizing she could quote scripture and poems from however long ago, but her short-term memory was just going. And there were some people who were trying to champion and say, yes, man, you need to stay around till you reach 100 because she would have been 99 in November. But it's almost as though she was like, it's not worth it if I don't have these faculties. And with that in mind, how individuals look at themselves, I also want to ask how important is self-care to a caregiver when caring for someone with dementia? And this may be it's your profession, or it may be a family member, someone in your circle.
It's urgent because none of us will make it through being the only caregiver, whether it's your loved one or your primary patient, for example, if you're a caregiver that's hired in a home. We have to have support because it is it's draining to constantly try to figure out what is the best way for us to help that person living with dementia, with our family member living with dementia, or our patient living with dementia. So um, that's what this program that I teach, it was so helpful for me, um, because it gave me some tools for the first time that helped me understand what was going on for that person. And I was able to assist them in more useful and productive ways than before.
And in terms of that support, what does that support look like? Because I remember someone sharing because it is a thing to look at this person, this pillar of strength, this person that you've had on a pedestal forever long. They've been this paragon of strength, and you're just looking towards them for whatever it is you need. And then you realize that, okay, well, the saying once a man, twice a child is really real. And you are now the person who lends the strength to this person. And
Yeah.
there was someone who was recounting, there's this person who literally grew them. But at the same time, sometimes they would visit and the person was like, who are you? And how do you
Yeah.
treat with that? So
Yeah.
in addition to asking that question, I want to know what support looks like, because sometimes people say, well, I need support. But how do you
Yes.
give some sort of tangible manifestation to what support can look like?
Okay, so I'll tell you, firstly, support for yourself, for the caregiver, is taking care of yourself, taking time out, reading, having someone else stay with your loved one so that you can move away and do things that are nurturing for yourself. The support in taking care of the person living with dementia, looks like certain kinds of skills that will reduce some of the behavior that we get in response to how we treat somebody with dementia, living with dementia. And you made a really important point as you were saying that there. Someone, oh my gosh, I lost my thought there for a minute. Can you help me?
Possibly that important point that someone.
I'm remembering now. So
Okay.
supporting someone with dementia and supporting a caregiver is giving us more tools. So we have some tools in our back pocket. Every time we have a situation of, non-cooperation, for example, this person that is living with dementia was this brilliant people. I mean, brilliant, wonderful people. You know them. Probably your grandma was one of those people. Um, and if we understand the changes that are happening in the brain and the abilities left for that person, we might have to start a new relationship. Husbands lose their wives to dementia long before they die. Wives lose their husbands to dementia long before they're gone. The relationship changes, but that person is still in there, and it is our job with more skills to try and understand how to reach that person that's in there, even to the very late stages of dementia.
And with that, we
So
take a short break, and because I want us to come back and talk about some of those tools, talk about the workshop specifically. But we do that when we return. We are speaking with a clinical instructor, Arlene Correia. Stay with us. We return with more. Welcome back. We are speaking with Arlene Correia, clinical instructor, and we are looking to see how we can increase your capacity, put some more tools in your toolbox dealing with someone who is living with dementia. And there is a workshop that is very, very close. So tell us about it a little bit, please, Arlene. All right, so there was a... And you're not frozen anymore? So not a problem. So it was the
Okay.
best time for it to freeze. So we're just going to start it over. Thanks.
All right. Yeah, that would be good. It did freeze. Yes. Okay.
Welcome back. We are speaking about journeying with an individual through dementia. We're doing so with clinical instructor Arlene Correia. And there's a workshop coming up. It's very close. So tell us a little bit about the workshop, please, Arlene.
Yeah, it is a 3 hour long, very interactive workshop. We begin by discussing what is normal aging as opposed to not normal aging, and when it can be dementia and when it can be something else. And then we start to figure out what are the abilities left for the patient who is living with dementia. And then bearing in mind the changes in their language and their brain cognition and their ability to decode signs, visual signs are much more important later on in the disease. Actually, about even middle of the disease, it's a good idea for us to start, for example, using visual cues. You're looking good today, for example, um, because of how much of our language they are missing while they are listening to us. It has nothing to do with hearing. It has to do with their ability to decode what we are saying while their brain is malfunctioning, honestly. And then we do a lot of experiential things. We pretend we have a group that's the patients living with dementia and a group that is not the caregiver, and what it feels like to be touched when we're not expecting it. What it feels like, for example, as our vision changes, to have food put down in front of us and we have no idea that it's there, or maybe later on not even know what to do with the utensil. We might take our fork up and comb our hair, or um, we misunderstand how to use things that we have used for all of our lives. And then approaches, literally, we get in groups where we physically approach in the most useful way for a person living with dementia. So they can see us and they have the best opportunity to understand what we are asking and saying to them. I would
And you,
say that covers the workshop. That's the
And
three parts.
you're saying these things, and I'm wondering whether or not I'm aging normally at this point in time, because I realize even like during the pandemic there were some things like I see, or in terms of like lip reading, to hear better. So the mass will I realize, okay, well this is different, and even like that
Yes.
visual stimulation to understand what someone is saying. And so just what you're saying is really resonating with me. But I'm wondering though, who is the ideal participant? Who are you trying to have and say, okay, well, who can best benefit from a workshop like this?
So I have a great answer to that. I think the person that will benefit the most are the family members and the caregivers of people who are living with dementia. But in addition, I'll just tell you what I have noticed, even among some of my friends who have had, I've had older friends that had earlier onset dementias. And because we all lack skills and become uncomfortable because our friend doesn't recognize us, for example, or we don't know how to interact with them in a way that is loving and comforting, we stop going to visit that friend. I see that happen repeatedly. People are uncomfortable without skills. So I would say that it is a valuable workshop for anyone that that is alive, because we are all going to come across a family member, a friend. If we live long enough, we're going to be dealing with many people that are living with dementia, and it can be ourselves as well. And so I have a vested interest in this. My mother had dementia from strokes, like your grandma, and some of those vascular dementias do end up, about 30% of them do end up in a normal decline dementia. So we will be interfacing with people, and it will give us a lot more ability to empathize and to have a wonderful moment with that person living with dementia. And to me, that's the goal, is to support the person living with dementia, and for us to get curious enough and develop skills so that we can help that person have a successful day, a successful shower, a successful walk, listening to music together, understanding what is left in the brain, like rhythm is left to the very end. You talked about your grandmother remembering the prayers and those kinds of things that she knew from a long time ago. That is what is left in, our right side of the brain. On the, it's the things that they seemed like rote songs that we learned when we were very, very young. Social chit chat. That's why sometimes I'm just going to go off on this little tangent, but sometimes if you are not living with the person who has dementia, people will visit and go like, "Oh, your mom just seems fine. She was just great." Well, it was because she was always great at social chit chat, and that is stored on the right side of your brain where that information is stored. But the language processing um, is more difficult to make sense of what is being told to you right now. Whereas, hi, how are you? Oh, I am fine. How are you doing? Those kind of things come very naturally, and they're not because your brain is failing means that you do not have, you are going to try and survive the best that you can and do social chit chat and get through a situation feeling good about yourself if you're a person living with dementia.
And I feel like after we finish this conversation, I'm going in a corner, just remember and cry cowball and all kind of things, snotty nose in the ball. We hold it together for it. But I will ask though, how does someone register? It's like, when is it? What kind of delivery? Because it seems as though it's something that will be in person. Those 3 hours sound very packed, very engaging. But how does someone become a part of this?
I actually have to get my sister for this. There is a website, Ziggy, there is a website set up for registering for the classes. And I can start by letting you know where they are. I know we have Barataria Community Center on Tuesday, and on Wednesday we have a program in San Fernando, and on Thursday in Arima. Hey, Ziggy.
And I think if I scroll, I should be able to help. It is evolvecaribbean.com
Yes.
/dementia. Yes.
Thank you
got
so
it.
much.
evolvecaribbean.com /dementia. But
Yes.
but in this last moment that we have before Ziggy reach, what is that? What do you really want to come out of these interactions that people have with you building their toolkits?
My goal is that the person living with dementia gets the kind of care that they need, that is more skilled on our part. That's the goal. If I had these skills when my mother was going through her dementia, I was developing them at that time, but I did not know many of the things that I know now, and it would have helped my mother incredibly. And I see families going through this without skills and with great love and great desire to do exactly what is right for that family member. And that's what I hope to achieve, is to just bring a little bit of that to Trinidad. I was on vacation and my sister said, "Oh my gosh, if you're doing that, why don't you just do some here?" And so it is our give back to the community.
And we really
So
want to
that,
thank you for giving back in this manner, really, 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 because those little incremental things you spoke about, this person is able to take a walk, they're able to take a shower, and having someone with the skills or increasing skills to allow that kind of facilitation is something that is really important. And you only know you're missing it when you don't have it. But we really want to thank
exactly.
you, Arlene Correia, for the work that you're doing. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.